do make sure that you sign in. I'm going to send out the Prezi that I have and the PowerPoint that the University Writing Commons has tomorrow. So please come on in. Please make sure that you write down all of your information on there so I can get that to you. Legibly would be nice. And your NAU email would be nice because I can only contact you with that one. So actually I'm going to have Daisy, you introduce yourself as well, actually.
Oh, I'm Daisy. I'm working at CIE as a graphic designer and photographer.
So yeah, Daisy's one of our grad student workers. She's awesome. And what's your name? Where are you going? What are you most excited for study abroad?
So my name is Tyler. I'm planning to go to Greece, and I'm most excited for immersion into their culture.
Awesome, great. Well, I'm excited that everybody's here today. I talk fast, and I have a tendency to kind of just vomit information on y'all. So if you have any questions, please interrupt me. Just shoot your hand straight on up, middle of a sentence, interrupt, go for it. And I lost us. Come on now. Okay. Don't trust me to be good with technology. That's just not going to happen. Any general questions about study abroad scholarships before we get started? Yes?
Are there any scholarships that you know of that are definitely available for this summer?
That's what we're going to go over today.
Okay.
Yes, a whole bunch of them. There are 3 that come from our office, from the Center for International Education. There's one that I'm going to talk about that comes from the federal government, and then on our website, which I'm going to send out and also show you, we have a variety of scholarships that come from a variety of different people. There are a whole bunch of organizations, foundations, just random rich people who recognize the value of international education and who want to donate money to students to be able to have an international education experience. So I am an expert in these scholarships that we offer and in some of the nationally based scholarships. For some of the weird one-off donor ones, like I had a student once who got a scholarship because he was left-handed, because he found a scholarship from a rich dude who went abroad who was left-handed, who wanted to give away money to students. There are a bunch of different types of scholarships out there. I'm going to talk about some of the general features that you see within study abroad scholarships, and specifically in the scholarships that we have in our office. I have something like $100,000 in funding to play with for the summer 2020 term, so let's get y'all some money. Types of scholarships. There are 4 main types of scholarships that are available. Wish I had a clicker, but we don't have a clicker. Merit-based. This is going to be based on your academics or on your extracurriculars. Yes?
Sorry, can you just pass the sign-in sheet this way?
Yes, I'm sorry. Pass. Thank you for interrupting. So it's going to be anything based on your GPA, on some of the extracurriculars you may be involved in, if there are any particular organizations that you're involved in. Phi Kappa Phi, it's a good one. It's the National Honor Society. So there are going to be some of these ones. The big one that we have in our office is the ASNAU Go Scholarship. How many students have started that bad boy? A couple people. Okay, that's going to be a big one. Please come in, take a seat. I know we're getting kind of crowded in here, but that's good. We're learning stuff. So this is going to be a big one for these ones. They will often ask to see a copy of your transcript. Typically an unofficial transcript is sufficient. You can get an unofficial transcript on your LUI. You can just download it yourself. If they do require official transcript, I would encourage you to reach out to your study abroad advisor if you've already submitted a transcript to your study abroad advisor, because we can send you a copy of the official transcript and save you from having to pay another $15 for another copy of the transcript. So that's a big one. Program specific. We don't have these quite so much over the summer, but if you're looking to go for the fall, there may be some good options here. These ones are often based on if you're going to a particular university, if you're going to a particular country, or if you happen to be learning a particular language. I work with Northern Europe. I do UK, Ireland, Scandinavia. I don't have many in the way of UK and Ireland because they're still the 2 most popular outbound destinations for American students. I've got some for Scandinavia, and then there are a lot more all over the world depending on where you're going. So these are some of the ones that we work with. GRIP is our Global Research and Internship Program. You do have the opportunity to intern or do research abroad if you want to do that. BORN is a language scholarship, LAM is a language scholarship, and the Global Learning Research, actually that needs to be taken off because we've reallocated that money. But there's a bunch of funding out there for the specifics of the program, and that can mean, again, a variety of things, whether it's location, language, or a particular university, or even just a particular city. Student specific. So I mentioned earlier I had a scholarship, I had a student get a scholarship because he was left-handed, and there just happens to be weird stuff out there for scholarships. So this can go in any direction. This can go based on any kind of work that you do, if you have any kind of personal connections in your life via organizations or Greek life or anything like that, based on, it can sometimes be based on extracurriculars. It can be based on things that identify you as an underrepresented student, such as being a student of color, LGBTQ, racial, ethnic, religious minorities, students with disabilities, any of those types of things. We have a couple of these ones. The Carl Dory comes from our office. That is the honors scholarship. So if there are any honor students, you would qualify for the Carl Dory scholarship. The No Excuses, that one is financial need based. The Gilman is also financial need based and also diversity and location based. And this one is also largely need based, to be honest. So a couple of those. And location specific, so kind of along the same lines as that program specific, but again, specifically just looking to send students to a particular country. We have a couple in the office right now. We've got one scholarship. It's really great, actually. We've got 4 scholarships that we've parceled out for underrepresented regions. So if you want to go to a really obscure school that we have in Georgia for an academic year in the Middle East, then we can get you $1,700. So we do have a bunch that are going to be based specifically on the country or, again, the city. So none of these come from our office, but they are all fantastic options, and we have them on our website. Questions so far? Okay. Lists of scholarships. So some of these come through our office, some of these come from third-party providers, some of them actually come from the language department on campus if you do plan on learning a language in the time that you're abroad. So they kind of come from all over the place. 2 things as well that I think are really, really underutilized in study abroad scholarships are one, it says USAC, but really any third-party provider scholarship. Who in here is going on a USAC program? Okay, so you guys are going to qualify for USAC-specific scholarships, and then if you're going on really anything that involves a third-party company, if you're going on an ISEP program, USAC, I've got a student doing a field studies, anything like that, separate companies typically have their own scholarships available, so take advantage of those, and then also take advantage of the NAU department scholarships. Every department on campus has funding available, for students. 99% of the time they will let you take it abroad because, again, they recognize the inherent value in international education. So, for example, the business college, if you just Google NAU FCB scholarships, literally, I do this all the time. First thing that comes up is the FCB scholarship page, and they are going to have scholarships that are available specifically to FCB students. Every department has that. When I was an undergrad here, I got a scholarship from the English department. So they are out there. They are highly underutilized. A lot of departments will complain that enough students don't know about them, don't apply for them, and they therefore don't have the opportunity to give out the money. So who in this room knows that your department has scholarships? That's not a lot of people. Okay, so take advantage of the departmental scholarships. If they need any kind of verification that you're using this money for study abroad, sometimes they'll ask me for something on NAU letterhead that says, I can verify that Billy is going on this program. I'm happy to do that. Your study abroad advisor is always going to be happy to write out whatever we have to write out in order to help verify that you're going where you need to go. The most common one that I see this with is tribal money. About once a semester I'm writing a letter for a student who's receiving money from their Native American tribe to verify going on this program, this is how much it costs, this is what the money is going to be used for, this is how it's going to be dispersed, all those kinds of things. So, questions? Okay, moving right along. Who in this room gets a Pell Grant on your FAFSA? That's a lot of hands. All right, I like seeing that. The Gilman Scholarship is a big one for our Pell Grant students. So there are 2 requirements for this scholarship. You have to be a Pell Grant recipient, and you have to be in your country for at least 21 days. So to be honest, a lot of the summer programs not going to qualify for this. But some of the summer programs will, or if you're going for a semester or the academic year, then you will qualify for this one. So this one, if you plan on applying for the Gilman Scholarship, pretty much if you have a Pell Grant and your program is 21 days or over, then I expect you to apply for the Gilman Scholarship. This one's up to $5,000. It's very competitive and it's very prestigious. This is one of those scholarships where if you win, then you get to go have a big fancy lunch with President Chang, and I'll be there wearing high heels, and it's going to be a whole thing. So that's a big one. And then anybody who's going to Asia, the program does have to be at least 8 weeks, so that's only a semester or a full academic year program. But this one is a similar program where it's for students who are studying in any Asian country who receive the Pell Grant. So These are going to be some of the options for Pell Grant students. If you don't know if you receive a Pell Grant, go onto your Louis, pull up your financial aid disbursement, and check to see if you receive a Pell Grant. The Pell Grant indicates that the federal government has decided that you come from a low-income background, and they want to ensure that finances are not something to hold students from those backgrounds from going abroad. So that's why this money exists, is to particularly assist students who come from that low-income background. So if you plan on applying for either of these scholarships, come see me directly. For anything else, I'm going to say go to the Writing Commons, and they'll be able to assist you with your drafts. Because the Gilman and the Freeman Asia are so prestigious, those ones I review myself, because I've actually been on the committees for these ones before. So come see me about these ones. These ones are really, really good. Again, the Gilman's up to $3,500 in the summer, $5,000 in the semester, and the Freeman Asia is up to $8,000 in the semester. So good chunk of funding right there. And then some of the scholarships that we have for language learners. We do have, this is just a couple. I recently just found a bunch more Chinese, Japanese, and French specific, so I'm still working on updating this a little bit. We have a couple different options for if you are learning a particular language. For a lot of them, they do have to be languages that are considered a quote-unquote critical need. Critical Language Scholarship Program and the Boren Scholarship, these ones are focusing on scholarships that the government, on languages that the government has designated to be of critical need for national security. So this is going to be Arabic, Urdu, Hindi, Chinese and Japanese actually do fall within these ones, but things like Spanish, French, and German do not. So if you're planning on learning a language, also come see me. Great option for these scholarships. But most of these, though, you do have to be doing a semester or a full year program, and a lot of these ones the summer will not do. But then you can always, for those of you who are doing the summer, you can also go abroad again. So very exciting. Some options for funding your study abroad. Use your network is always the big one. Apply for scholarships that you know exist within the Center for International Education. Apply for scholarships that you know exist within your department. Apply for any funding that exists in any other connections in your life. For example, if you're in Greek life, if you're in any of the clubs or organizations, whether they're campus-based or nationally based, a lot of these institutions do have funding available, not always specifically for study abroad, but if you win a scholarship and you say, oh, I'd like to take this money abroad, again, typically they'll say yes as long as they get something from me to verify. So check out all of that good stuff. We do have a scholarship resource page, and also most of the scholarships that you can apply for within OFSA, the Office of, is that the acronym? I don't know. The Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid, OSFA, there we go. Most of those scholarships will apply to study abroad as well. So look at our scholarship resource and a general NAU scholarship resource. Crowdsourcing, I like Fund My Travel more than I like GoFundMe. I've seen students get a little bit of traction on this. GoFundMe takes out a higher percentage. They take out like 10% in fees. Fund My Travel only takes out 3%, and it's intended specifically for students who want to travel. So that's a good one. Ask people to sponsor you. I've seen a lot of the restaurant fundraising nights from a lot of the organizations around campus doing stuff. So those are going to be some of the options. And of course, you can apply your FAFSA to financial aid. You can apply your loans and your grants. Most programs, actually really to all programs as long as they're long enough. So you are, for that, going to want to talk to Tammy Jones over in our financial aid office. Her email is studyabroadaid@nau.edu. We can guarantee that loans and grants will apply to any program, most programs depending on length and how many credits you're earning. And in the semester or the academic year, any of the tuition waivers will apply as well. The tuition waivers, the lumberjack, the blue, the gold, the presidents, the deans, those do not apply over the summer term. That's an NAU thing, that's not a NUS thing. But anything else we can generally get to apply for the summer. So there are options out there, we promise. And you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of as many of these as possible, because some of the scholarships are going to ask you what resources you have employed in order to pay for study abroad. And if you just say, oh, I'm just applying for this scholarship, and you don't show any other evidence of financial planning, such as, I'm asking for sponsorships, or I've opened up a Fund My Travel, or I'm working and I'm putting aside this amount of money. We want to know the specific strategies that you're employing, so you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of as many as possible to show that this is something you're working for, finance or something you're working for study abroad. edabroad.nau.edu. I'm sure at this point everybody is familiar with that website. That is where you're going to be able to find the scholarships that we have. I will also go to the particular page here in just a little bit. There's some of our students doing fun stuff. That's going to be you guys. So deadlines, coming up pretty soon. This is for the GO, the No Excuses, and the Carl Dorey Scholarship. These are the scholarships that apply within, I should say, where funding comes from the Study Abroad office. Those are all going to be March 1st if you're going abroad in the summer, regardless of what program you're going on. The reason we have it at March 1st is because half of our programs, about 60% of our programs have a February 15th deadline, and about 40% have a March 15th deadline. We simply do not have a big enough scholarship committee to have it split like that, so we've just decided, and with the way that the money is dispersed, it kind of creates some issues. So we split it down the middle. March 1st is the deadline for all summer scholarships, and April 1st is the deadline for fall scholarships. Is anybody in this room going abroad for the full academic year? Okay, you can apply for the same scholarships for both fall and spring. So the Go, the No Excuses, and the Carl Dory. The No Excuses, it lowers your chance if you apply for it and you get it and you apply a second time. But for anything else, if you're going abroad for 2 terms, you can apply for the scholarship every single term that you're abroad. And if you decide to study abroad again in the future, you can apply for scholarships every time. It's just some of them will say, have you won this scholarship before? And when you say yes, and that's going to kind of decrease your chances of getting it a little bit, but it does still happen. So these awards, for 2 of them, for the ASNAU Go and the No Excuses, it's between $250 to $1,000. So it's $250, $500, $750, $1,000. That is on a sliding scale compared to how you do with, really in comparison to everybody else. And we do have a pretty high rate of award for these scholarships. For the Go and the No Excuses, in the semester, I'm required to allocate between 40 to 50% of students who apply. So if 100 students apply for a fall scholarship, 40 to 50 of them are getting funded. For the summer, it's actually 60%. So you have a pretty good chance, if you apply for both the Go and the No Excuses, which I'll get in a little bit more detail here in a second, you have a pretty good chance of getting at least one of them, right? And then the Honor Scholarship, that one is between 250 to 500. So keep in mind, just because you are submitting an application does not mean that you're going to qualify for the full amount. Once scholarship information is released, I get a lot of emails saying, why didn't I get more money? It just means that somebody else had a better application than you. So take advantage of the fact that we have the writing comments here, and make sure you're submitting really high quality applications and get a whole bunch of money. It's good stuff. Questions? And then B, if you're involved on campus, when you come back and you get, when you come back from study abroad and you get involved in all those clubs and stuff, your friend's gonna be like, oh my gosh, where were you? And you'll be like, I was in South Korea for the semester, it was amazing. And they'll be like, oh, I can study abroad too. Billy studied abroad, does that mean I can study abroad? And then they come talk to us. So I can talk about study abroad until I'm blue in the face. When you guys coming back and sharing your experiences with your friends, that's going to mean so much more than anything I can ever say. So we kind of use it as a little bit of a domino effect. We kind of use you guys as our unofficial marketing tool, so to speak. But that's why we're looking at the on-campus stuff. It's partially because we have to, and partially because it helps spread the word about study abroad. So for that, we're looking at anything involved on campus. A lot of students in this section will list things that they're involved in the Flagstaff community. That's great. I'm happy you're involved in the Flagstaff community. Ultimately, it doesn't fit the criteria of this scholarship. For this scholarship, we're looking at clubs, sports, Greek life. If you work on campus, if you are a TA or an SI tutor or something along those lines, if you're in any of the business or service fraternities, if you're in any of the religious organizations, anything that basically that's associated, that's a club on NAU. If you go to the club's page, if it's listed there, that counts. Yes?
Do you think it's a first gen program like the scholars?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything at all. We get very creative with looking at on-campus involvement because there's a lot of really interesting, weird stuff that you can get involved in. I was briefly in the swing dance club when I was an undergrad. Still exists, by the way, if anybody wants to go swing dance. This is really kind of the idea behind that. So questions on what qualifies as on-campus involvement? Okay, I can tell you right now pretty much anything will. Program choice, we do look at this one. The big 3 things that we're looking at when we look at program choice are personal, professional, academic goals. So one of the questions in the Go Scholarship is going to be, why did you choose this program? And don't just say, because I always want to travel, I want to study abroad, I want to see the world. Everybody wants to do that. I can guarantee you everybody wants to do that. So you want to be really, really specific in why you chose this particular program. Did you choose it because it happened to be the most affordable program that you could go on and you knew there were scholarships? Did you choose it because it was to the location that you have some kind of personal connection to? I've got family from Korea, surprisingly, so I could list that if I was going to Korea. It's going to be if you are earning specific academic credit for this, or if it's going to fulfill a specific internship requirement, or I was talking earlier to an international affairs major, they have to go abroad. So tell us specifically why you chose this program, in as much detail as possible. And then academic performance, we don't look as much at this anymore. We did kind of take away a lot of this because we felt like it wasn't as relevant. But the minimum GPA is 2.5. If you do not have a 2.5 GPA, you do not qualify to apply for any scholarship. And you actually don't qualify to study abroad. So if you're in this room, I assume you have a 2.5. So we look at that largely to see how your academics are impacted by the involvement that you're in on campus. So we understand that being the president of 3 clubs on campus is going to take away the time that you have to invest in your academics. But if we see that you have, a GPA that's slightly on the lower side, but you're super, super, super involved and all this kind of stuff, we're going to understand that things kind of weigh out, Or if you say I work on campus for 25 hours a week and you have a slightly lower GPA, then we're going to, understand that a little bit more. If you have a really, really high GPA and you're super involved, then that's just, more power to you. So we look at the GPA in reference to other things. We're not just going to say, oh, well, Tommy has this GPA and Billy has this GPA, so Billy is clearly better. No, we look at the full picture. Questions on that? Okay. No excuses. Financial need is the big one for this. We did go ahead and revamp this one over the summer. The 2 questions for this one are, why did you choose the program in relation to your finances? So again, earlier one of the questions was program choice, just why'd you choose this program? This one is specifically in relation to finances. I chose this program because I knew that it would take my lumberjack scholarship. I chose this program because I knew that it would take my FAFSA. I chose this scholarship because I chose this program because I knew there were a bunch of location-specific scholarships that I could apply for. I chose to go over the summer because it's cheaper than going for the full semester. Tell us financially why you chose this program. Don't just skip to the part of why I chose this program. Tell us the finance side of things. And then the other essay question is going to be really just tell us about your finances. We have access to your FAFSA. So we don't really want numbers. If we want the numbers, we've got the numbers. We're asking you to tell us in your own words about your financial story. So stuff like, I come from a low-income background, I come from a single-parent household, I'm a first-generation college student, I have multiple siblings in college at the same time, I come from a single-parent household, students with disabilities, LGBTQ, racial, ethnic, religious minorities, dad got sick, mom got laid off, anything like that that affects your finances, yes.
So is it more like a personal narrative kind of essay?
Yes, exactly, yeah. So you're telling your own story about the finances. I want to emphasize you want to be as detailed as possible in this aspect. A lot of students will say things like, I don't want to feel like I'm trying to invoke pity, or I don't want to feel like I'm telling a sob story. That's not what we're looking at here. We want you to tell the truth. We want to know the full story. Right now we only know what's on the FAFSA. We only know what that number says that the government dictates based on a whole bunch of different things. We want to know, in your own words, what difficulties do you face in paying for college, and how is that going to translate into difficulties in paying for study abroad? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, detailed as possible. I want to emphasize on this one as well. Everything is graded on a double-blind scale. Some students can feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about money, and also this is a good place to emphasize some personal attributes that may indirectly affect your finances, such as, again, being a student of color, being LGBTQ, racial, ethnic, religious minorities, anything like that. Some students may not necessarily feel publicly comfortable talking about that. We take your name away from the application, we replace it with a number, and the only person who has the ability to match the number back up to your name and put the information back to you is a scholarship coordinator, which is me. And I want everybody in this room to get all of the money regardless of your life. So please be as honest as you feel comfortable being in this, knowing that it is going to be anonymous, and be as detailed as possible when talking about the finances. Questions? All right. Oh, program choice. I did kind of talk about this one. So yeah, your program choice in relation to the financial side of things, and a little bit of the reasons why you chose the program. This is going to be, again, mostly focusing on the finances, but it's okay to pepper in a little bit of that. I've always wanted to go to this country because of this and this and this. Have a personal spin on it as well. We know that you're more than just a wallet. We know that you're more than just a bank account. And I want to emphasize as well, we are not making any money on you guys studying abroad. Study abroad is a zero-sum. We're giving money away. We're losing money to have you guys study abroad. So this is not something where you need to feel like, you have to really impress us because of blah, blah, blah. No, we don't care. I just want you to go abroad. I just want you to go and have an amazing time and take our money to do it. So, questions on program choice? Can I talk about that? Julio. And financial planning, I talked about this a little bit earlier. In the No Excuses Scholarship, it is heavily emphasized. One of the big questions that we ask is, tell us about the other financial planning aspects that you've applied to study abroad other than applying for this scholarship. If all you say is, I'm applying for this scholarship, that's going to say to us that you really haven't put that much effort into funding your study abroad experience. So we want to know, again, details of these specific strategies that you are using, whatever they may be. So, questions on this one? spend a lot more time on this one than you really think you're gonna need, because this is a big, big, big part of what we look at. So for both the Go and the No Excuses scholarships, they are essay-based. We're gonna have Jordan here in a little bit talk about how to write that award-winning essay. But generally speaking, make sure you're turning in good quality work. Make sure you're turning in, high quality essays. A good chunk of these, about 25% of the rubric is quality of application. So you want to make sure that it doesn't have any typos, that everything is, formatted correctly. I get some essays that look literally like text messages where they have the letter U and the letter to and stuff like that for you too, and like emojis and stuff like that. You need to treat this as an essay that you're turning in for a grade. So turn in high quality stuff. This one's big just because our website is weird. Write it in a Word document and then copy and paste it into the little box that we give you. If you try to write it in a box and come back and save it later, it doesn't always save it. Yes?
Is Google Docs all right as well?
Sure. Anything that's not just that box. Don't put it in the box that on our application until it's done, until it's ready to go to submit. Just because it's about 50% of the time it'll go ahead and delete it on you. And we don't want that. You guys are working hard on this. We don't want that. So write it in Word, write it in Google Docs, write it in whatever, and then copy and paste it in when you're done. Biggest things I want to say, 3 biggest points that I have, then I'll turn it over to Jordan here in just a sec. Actually, I'm going to do the Gilman first. So in a little bit. But make sure you are, again, turning in high quality pieces of work. Make sure that you answer every part of the question completely. Like I said earlier, one of the financial questions is, in relation to finances, why did you choose this program? A lot of students will skip that first part and just go into, I want to study abroad because of this. We know that. Everybody wants to study abroad. So make sure you're answering all parts of the question that's being posed to you. And I never think I have to say this, but apparently I do, and we're starting to crack down on it. You have to meet the word count. New policy. If you do not meet the word count, we will not read it. It's an automatic 0. I've gotten literally 2 sentence long essays before. One essay is 350 to 500 words. One essay is 500 to 750 words. Really not huge. It's not, super easy, but it's not huge. If you do not meet the word count, we will not read it. I'm going to tell you that right now. And if you come in and ask why it is you didn't get funded, and I say it's because you didn't meet the word count, it's kind of where we go. That's been a big issue that we've had, so we really kind of have to start cracking down on that. So meet the word count. Questions? Alrighty. So just some tips, kind of a sum up of some of the stuff I said, and I'm going to talk real briefly about the Gilman, and then I'll turn it over to Jordan. How to submit, how to win, how to submit a winning application. Choose your program wisely. When you're asked, why did you choose this program, be able to accurately articulate, wow, I can't even articulate, accurately articulate why you chose this program. Do your research on the program, make sure you know what you're talking about. Tell your unique story. Again, everybody wants to study abroad. We want to know particularly why you do, whether you have a language connection, or a familial connection, or a cultural connection, or you've just seen a lot of BBC and wanted to go to the UK. I don't know, but tell your own unique story about why you want to study abroad. Be organized. Jordan's going to talk about that. Start early. For those of you who are applying for summer, deadline is March 1st. Those of you for the full academic year or fall, it is April 1st, so you still got some good time here to get some drafts in, which is awesome. Know why you're going abroad and how it will impact your life. Again, we're asking about personal, professional, academic goals. So other than just the fact that travel is awesome, why do you want to travel? Clearly connect personal, professional, and academic goals, and go to the writing commons. I cannot emphasize this enough. I worked very briefly for them in my undergrad. They are amazing, and they're going to be able to really help you write an award-winning essay. So follow these steps. Proofread, turn in high quality stuff, have somebody else read it for you, and get some money. Yeah. So that's my information and also Tammy's information. I'm Amanda.Williamson at NAU.edu. Tammy is study abroad aide at NAU.edu. I'll also be sending around this Prezi at the end of tomorrow. I'll send out tomorrow. So if you have any questions, please do feel free to email me, or of course email Tammy directly. So really quick, Gilman Scholarship. I'm not going to talk about the board because the deadline's already passed. Gilman Scholarship, this money comes from the State Department. It is only available to students who receive the Gilman because, again, the Gilman indicates that that you come from a low-income background, so they want to give you this money to help ensure that you receive enough funding to allow you to go to school. So, mission is to broaden the student population that studies abroad by supporting undergraduate students who may not otherwise be able to participate due to financial constraints. You have to receive a Pell Grant, you have to be 21 days or more in one country. So those of you who are going on programs that are throughout different countries also will not apply for the, will not qualify for the Gilman. But if you're doing a 3 to 4 week summer program, that will qualify, or of course any of the semester or year-long programs. You have to receive academic credit, so if anybody in here is doing an internship or research opportunity, you still qualify for the Gilman, only if you're receiving academic credit. If we have a transcript at the end of it, then you qualify for this. If you're doing an internship or research where you do not receive a transcript, no Gilman for you. And you have to be an undergrad. Is everybody in this room an undergrad? Any graduate students? Other than? Okay, cool. The deadlines for this one it's coming up quick, is why I'm emphasizing it. So it's always the first Tuesday in March, and then the first Tuesday in October. So the first Tuesday in March is going to be students who are studying summer, fall, or full academic year. Spring is going to be that October deadline for students who are studying in spring. They're very strict on these deadlines. They will not accept late applications, and you have to go based on Eastern time. So when they say it's due at 11:59, it's really due at 8:59, that sort of thing. And then summer, this one's up to, they've changed it actually, it's up to 3,500 for the summer, semester's up to 5,000, and if you are learning one of those critical need languages that I talked about earlier, then you qualify for an extra $3,000. So if you're going to Morocco to study Arabic, then you could theoretically qualify for a total of $8,000, which is pretty cool. Questions on this stuff? Okay. Yes?
So say we're going to Germany for 2 weeks, we don't apply to this,
It has to be at least 21 days.
okay.
21 days physically in country. Yes?
Okay.
I remember you saying in like past scholarship sessions that this one's like, if you win it once, you're not eligible to win it again?
Yes, because it is such a high chunk of change, you can only win this one once. You can apply multiple times, so if you're studying for a full academic year, then you can apply for each term that you're going, but if you get it that first term, then you're done at that point. Yeah. Alrighty. Selection criteria is going to be similar to some of the other stuff that we discussed for the No Excuses Scholarship, because they're both financial need based. So, and depending on programs, those can apply to summer. It's a case-by-case, student-by-student basis. So you're going to want to go have a chat with our financial aid advisor, Tammy Jones.
Okay.
It varies heavily student to student because it depends on how much money you've already used for this year. So definitely go have a chat with her.
Thank you.
Yes,
Is there like a deadline for that specific stuff? Like,
for the financial aid stuff.
yeah.
We like to say a month or so before you leave. There's not really any official deadline, but it's nice to get it done sooner rather than later because a lot of students do wait until 2 or 3 days before they're getting ready to leave, and at that point she's of course swamped. So it's better to get it done a little bit on the other side. Yeah. So diversity for this one. There's 2 categories they're looking at for diversity. They're looking at diversity of participant, and we'll get to diversity of location in a second. So diversity of participant, so looking for anything that again puts you in the realm of being an underrepresented student in study abroad. So that would include being students of color, students who are LGBTQ, racial, ethnic, religious minorities, again, students with disabilities, other factors that make you non-traditional or underrepresented in study abroad. What we mean by underrepresented or non-traditional is simply looking at the statistics of study abroad. It is overwhelmingly white, it is overwhelmingly female, and it is overwhelmingly heteronormative, and it is overwhelmingly middle class. So anything outside of that is kind of what we're going for. Not to say if you fall within those categories that you don't qualify for funding, but in looking at diversity of participant, the Gilman is looking for students who fall outside of those realms. So men in the room, men who study abroad is actually considered an underrepresented population, believe it or not. So we're looking at that stuff. This is an important one. Give details. Don't ever assume that we know anything about you. We are trained to not make any kind of assumptions about you. For example, this is one example that I think is particularly effective. It used to be that we would still attach the names to scholarship applications, and if a student had just as an example, a last name that was sounded particularly Latinx or Hispanic, then we would assume that the student identified as Latinx or Hispanic. A, we take away your names, so we don't see that information. B, we're trained on not to assume anything. Unless you specifically come out and say, I identify as a student of color, we will assume that you do not. So you need to be very specific, you need to give us details. Do not assume that we are going to assume, because I will tell you right now, we will not. We are specifically trained to not do that. Yes?
Yeah, but what would happen if like somebody said that, but they're, like not at all?
We're trusting you here, man. Like, please don't lie to me. That's really kind of the best I've got. We're not going to go and double check this stuff. But please don't lie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm keeping an eye on you. Okay, I guess that's covered in there, actually. So I'm sorry, the other diversity, I thought I had a separate slide for it, but apparently I don't. The other diversity is diversity in location. So the big locations that we see with students studying abroad are, surprise, surprise, Western Europe, Italy, France, Germany, United Kingdom, Ireland, those types of regions. So anything that is outside, almost anything that's outside of Western Europe is considered an underrepresented location. Eastern Europe, Middle East Africa, Asia, Latin America, Canada, actually, we've got as an underrepresented region. So if you're going to what we'd consider a non-traditional region, that's one thing that they look at as well with diversity is location. For these essays, most study abroad essay application. Wow, study abroad scholarship applications, words, will be essay based. Almost all of them are going to be essay based. So again, you want to make sure you're turning in high quality work. Have it reviewed, everything I've already kind of said. Questions on that? Yes?
So like, is like, does plagiarism ever come into play? So it's like if we're doing applying for multiple scholarships, will they like be able to see like, oh, you submitted the same essay for another scholarship?
If it's one of our scholarships, yes, we will.
Okay.
And we'll dock you for that. If we see that you typed up because it used to be the Go and the No Excuses scholarship had one essay question that was very similar, and people would, just copy and paste it. We'll mark you down for that. If you use the same scholarship for the No Excuses and the Gilman, we don't have any way to verify that, but I'm really not going to encourage it because they really do they're really asking for almost the same thing, but not quite. So I encourage you to have an original piece of work for each application. Again, it's one of those things we're trusting you. Questions? Okay. Always proofread your essays. We can tell a very distinct difference between students who go to the Writing Commons and students who do not. It is astonishing how often we see study aboard instead of study abroad. Proofread your work. That one I did at least once a semester. Fields of study and academic performance. The Gilman gives extra preference to STEM, but they're not going to deny you if you're not a STEM student. It's just because STEM is also considered an underrepresented major in study abroad. That's changing, actually. Even just in the 4 years that I've been here, that's changed drastically. But it still is underrepresented. So we preference STEM, but everybody qualifies. Oh yeah, here we go. Destination. I knew I had a separate slide for that one. So yeah, diversity in location. Anything outside of Western Europe or Australia really is considered kind of a diverse location. Oh, and New Zealand. Canada for us is considered diverse. So, because we send like 2 students to Canada a year. So, yeah, make sure you're emphasizing that location if you're going to a particularly diverse location. And then if you are learning any of these languages, then like I said, you qualify for that slight little bump in up to $3,000 additional in funding. Most of these are languages that we do not offer on NAU campus. That freaks some students out. You do not have to have any prior language background in anything unless you decide to do Japanese or Chinese. Those two you do have to have at least a 101 background. Anything else, you can just go and learn Swahili if you want to. Just go to Africa and just learn Swahili. So no previous language experience is necessary with the exception of Chinese and Japanese. Just since they know that most universities offer that. Yes?
Would that have to be a semester-long thing, or could that count for like the 3 week?
This one has to be at least 3 weeks. Yeah. So this is it's the same as the Gilman. So as long as it's 21 days in country, then it would qualify. But you would have to prove that you are studying exclusively language.
Oh,
So-
exclusively?
Exclusively, yeah, for this one. If it's over the summer, it would have to be exclusively. If it's in the semester, it would have to be 75%. But if it's over the summer, then all of your classes would have to be language classes in order to qualify. Which if you're taking one class, then that would work out. Prior study abroad experience, they will, again, preference students who have not gone abroad before. That is pretty common with need-based scholarships, just because we want to ensure that the money goes to students who have not yet had an international experience. So if you've been abroad before, it's not going to count hugely against you, but it is something that's going to be asked, and it is something that's going to be taken into account. Travel abroad does not count against you. Study abroad will. So if you went to Jamaica for 3 weeks with your family when you were a kid, that's totally fine. If you've previously done a study abroad experience, then that will be considered. I shouldn't say it'll count against you, but it will be considered. Essay-based. More of the essay-based. Hooray! So the beginning of this one is why did you choose your program? Some information on the finances, what makes you unique, financial challenges to study abroad, And again, we're going to sprinkle in any of those details that identify you as an underrepresented student, again, focusing on that diversity aspect, whether it's in you or diversity in location. So, of course, take your essay in, make sure it's high quality. And then for the Gilman Scholarship, as well actually for the ASNAU Go Scholarship, you do have to do a service project. So for the Gilman Scholarship, they have a kind of particular list of stuff that they want you to do. The idea is they want you to come back from study abroad and host an event on campus to talk about study abroad. So we've had students who've done social media interviews, social media takeovers, interviews with the lumberjack, anything that you do to identify, or I'm sorry, to share your information with your experience with Gilman across a wider campus base. That's kind of what they're looking for here. For the Go Scholarship, we ask you to either write us a blog in the time that you're abroad, just so we can show it to other students and say, hey look, Thomas studied abroad, it was great. Either do that, or when you come back, be a volunteer with us. You may have seen some events where we have our global ambassadors present. They are returned study abroad students who either choose to donate their time to us or who have won the Go Scholarship and owe us 10 hours. It's only 10 hours a semester, and a lot of the events are really fun, to be honest, especially if you're an alumni, because you're literally just talking about study abroad. You're going to see it when you come back. A lot of people who haven't studied abroad, they don't understand. They really don't understand what this experience means to spend a long term in another country. And you get a lot of what I call the glazed eye effect, which I'm guilty of myself occasionally, even being in this job. But like I talked about, I studied in England. And you don't really realize it for a while, but every fifth sentence I was like, oh, and then in England they do this. Oh, and then in Europe they do this. Oh, and then in England they eat this. It was fantastic. You're referencing it a lot, you know, and you're referencing a lot of experiences. And because it really is going to fundamentally change a lot of who you are. And eventually be talking to people about it, and you'll start to see their eyes glaze over, and they're like, oh my gosh, are we still talking about England? And I'm guilty of that myself. My mom lived in Turkey for 2 years. And to this day, she'll start talking about Turkey, and I find myself just like, how are we still talking about Turkey? How are we still talking about Turkey? So people, and that was, you know, I still do that a little bit, but mostly before I got into this job and before I'd done it myself. So a lot of people simply aren't going to really understand. And it's nice to be a global ambassador, whether or not you get the Go Scholarship or the Gilman, because it's going to give you an immediate community of people who do understand, who had, if not the same experiences, then very, very similar experiences, and who are going to understand what that really means to you as a person. So it's a really great way to keep involved with kind of your international experience in the time that you come back. So Gilman requires it, we require it for the Go Scholarship. A couple of other scholarships also require a service project, so just be aware of that. These are some of the examples of really Gilman gives for service projects. And just some facts about the Gilman. Again, they do look to identify specifically underrepresented students, so fun stuff all up in here. I'm not going to spend too much time on that just because I know it doesn't apply to everybody in the room, but yeah, that's the Gilman. That's kind of all I've got on my side of things. So what questions do we have before I turn it over to the awesome Jordan from the University of Writing Commons? Okay, I'll also be just kind of meandering around in the back. So thank y'all, and I've got you already set up. There we go.
I am a GTA. I'm currently working on my MFA for creative writing, and I am a writing assistant with the University of Writing Commons. And today I'm going to be talking with you guys, giving you some tips and tricks on how to write a good personal essay when you're applying for these scholarships and these funds for study abroad scholarship applications. Okay. So here are just some general tips that you want to keep in mind when you start writing. First off, you want to use the first person. Maintain a friendly but formal tone. It's really important that you're talking about yourself. These programs want to learn about who you are as a person, what are you bringing to this program, what are your qualifications. So that the use of first person is really important. Establish your credibility. Some of this was gone over in the previous presentation, but just make sure that you support your main points with stories. Use anecdotes, examples, descriptions. Be specific about what qualifies you. And then make sure you have an introduction, and this is where you sort of set the scene. Here's some background contextual information, and then establish what information are you going to cover within the body of the essay itself. Topic sentences, make sure that your readers are able to follow you. Topic sentences are kind of like road signs that help guide the reader. So it's very, very important that you have clear topic sentences, and these usually come within the first sentence or two of each body paragraph. Transitions, make sure that you're helping guide the reader from one topic to the next. Help the reader make connections between the different points that you are making. If a connection between two different subjects isn't obvious, then you can bet that your reader is not going to be able to spot that. So you want to make sure that's clear and it comes through in the writing that you are doing. Do not write this essay last minute. Super important. You really want to take your time with this. Make sure that you even downtime that you have between writing drafts is useful. Write your first draft, then just sleep on it, and usually that can help you take a look at your essay with some fresh eyes, give you a fresh perspective, and that can help make your future revisions even better. And lastly, make sure that you read all of the scholarship essay instructions carefully. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are following things like word count, formatting requirements. Do they want double space? Do they want single space? What kind of font do they want? Make sure that that you follow those instructions very carefully. Otherwise, it's going to be much easier to reject you. All right. So before you even start writing, you need to do some research. So think about what is the program that you're applying for, and why are you applying for this particular program? That background contextual information, the reason why that you're writing this. And then also think about your audience. Who is going to be reviewing your scholarship application essay? And you can dig deep and think about who's on the committee that's going to be reviewing your essays. Think about what their expectations are going to be in terms of what makes a good essay, and just be aware of that. All right, showing instead of telling. This is a big one. You be specific. Always be specific. There's a few examples here. But whenever you're faced with questions like, why have you chosen your country of study, or what factors led you to select this country, you want to make sure that you be specific and you be personal. So the first example here, we have, I've always been fascinated by China. My family and I vacationed there when I was 16, and I've always wanted to go back. So here we have a general statement. I've always been fascinated by China, and that's followed by specifics. My family and I vacationed there when I was 16, and I've always wanted to go back. So make sure that you include those specifics and don't just stop with the generalities. Second example, I want to teach English as a second language because of my Chinese roommate. In exchange for offering her feedback on English essays, she makes me dinner once a week. Last week she made dumplings called baozi, and she taught me how to make the dough and steam them in a bamboo basket. Afterward, I showed her how to format an essay. So what's great about this is that it goes from a specific want, this is what the writer is trying to achieve with this essay. This is one that their reasonings, and then they go straight into a personal story, a personal anecdote, and that makes their personal statement all the more stronger because of that. All right, so when you're just getting started, think about what are the 2 or 4 things that you want the application reviewers to know about you. Think about what makes you special, what makes you unique, and this can range from things from your family, your educational background, work experiences, volunteering experiences. Think about what makes you unique and what you are bringing to this program specifically. and think about how those connect with the program itself. Do you think about any special skills that you might have? Are you particularly good at with leadership, management, research, communication, things like that? And then you want to make sure that you show them with specific examples within the context of your essay itself. So, the example here, how will this study abroad program impact your academic/professional goals? We have point number 1 of an essay, and this might appear in an outline, for example. And they said, I want to be an English teacher in a multicultural school someday. So there we have the purpose, and then story about growing up next to a Chinese family and learning about the challenges their children faced in school. That's one detail, and then a second detail is figuring out how you want to connect that to how you want to learn more about Chinese culture, making the connection there, and then relaying that to how you want to be a better, more empathetic teacher someday. So just think about how you can make that connection between your specific points, those specific personal details, and what your future goals are. What do you want to get out of this program that you're applying for? Always be thinking about that. Okay, so we're going to do a brief brainstorming exercise. We can do this either on computers if you have them, scrap pieces of paper. I actually brought some pieces of scrap paper with me. So if anybody's interested, we can pass these around and just start moving those around.
And I'm gonna turn the lights on for this particular.
What factors led you to this decision? What do you hope to gain from your experience abroad? Then next we have, why have you chosen your country of study? What factors led you to select this country? And then lastly, how will this study abroad program impact your academic and future professional goals? So choose one of those sets of questions, and then we're going to make a list. Make a list with, you can use bullet points if you want to, and just brain dump everything that you have to say about this particular topic. Whatever first comes to mind, put that down on the piece of paper or on your laptop, whatever you're using, and let's just take a few minutes to fill out your list. Start out with the most obvious thing, and then start digging down a bit deeper as you go. And we'll take 2 or 3 minutes to do this first section. Who's feeling pretty confident in their story that we came up with?
I'll call on you, don't feel like sharing, trust me.
Who's feeling like maybe halfway, kind of semi-confident in their story? Yeah.
Okay. I feel semi-confident, I think. So I talked more about a personal thing. I chose the second, why have you chosen your country to study? And I'm going to Italy. So I said, for one of my bullet points, I talked about like an immigrant background on both sides of my family. So I said I rarely felt or had the opportunity to connect to my cultural roots. I just recently saw my family in Mexico for the first time in 13 years. And then I said, my mom's from Mexico, so I got to experience the life that she grew up in, and so I saw her childhood school, and I slept in her room. I stayed in my grandpa's house, and got to know my family, really, because none of them are here. And then I said, in the same way, I want to experience Italy and get to know the life that my great-grandparents lived. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's why I want to go to Italy. That's the reason.
Cool. That's great. Anybody else want to share?
I will call on somebody. Thomas, can I pick on you?
Sure.
You know I'm really Mexican.
So for mine, I focus more on like the professional goals. So I'm a photography minor and a film major, And like I'm really looking forward to expanding my photography portfolio while I'm abroad because I want to get into the like travel photography industry, and it's kind of hard to do that when you're in one city. So I'm looking forward to like working on like doing that, and the story that I like accompany, I guess, with that is I'm from Colorado, so being in Flagstaff is like a different experience for me. And I tend to like not like being downtown because it's so touristy, so I like to like when it's nice out, I like to go out and take pictures in different places that, you know, most people wouldn't really think to go to. So I just like want to do the same thing abroad and expand my portfolio.
Awesome. That's great. All right. So, now that we've done some brainstorming, you know, hopefully some ideas are starting to spark in your heads. Once you actually, there's one more thing that you need to do before you actually start writing the essay, and that is outlining. And there are a few different ways that you can do this. And you know, every person has their different likes and dislikes in terms of outlining. But there's just a few examples. One thing you can do is just verbally talk it out. If you're a very social person, sometimes just sitting down with a friend or potentially a teacher and just hashing things out, talking through it. That can help give you an idea for what kind of things you want to put into your personal essay. Think about the most interesting parts of that conversation, and those can be stories and details that you include within the essay itself. You can also use PowerPoint or Google Slides to help you organize your ideas, and when you do this, you can make one slide for each paragraph and have that as an organizational tool. And then one of the cool things you can do is you can actually go back after you've written those slides, and you can manipulate where they appear within the order of your paper. So that can help you organize things that way. Another method that I like to use is sticky notes. You can stick these up on the wall. You can actually buy like giant poster board size sticky notes and stick those to the wall, and then stick smaller sticky notes onto there. You can roll it up, take it wherever you want. And what's useful about that is that when you're writing like major points or details onto these sticky notes, you can then pick them up and place them anywhere you want within your outline that you're creating. And it kind of helps free your mind into thinking that you know, these elements could potentially go anywhere, and it's up to you as the writer to decide where they will be most effective. So you could end up adjusting your outline as you write, thinking about, no, this detail really doesn't fit within this third paragraph. Maybe it would go better up here in the first paragraph. Things like that, just to help conceptualize just how you can manipulate the writing, what goes where, what information goes where. So now that you have your outline, it's time to think about writing an introduction. So you want to start with a description or an anecdote about yourself, and then connect it to why you want to study abroad, what you hope to gain from studying abroad. And it's super important that you start out strong, start your essay out strong. And starting out with a short story with personal details can be a great way to do that. It's a great way to grab and hook the reader's attention. And especially when you're applying for scholarships, it's really important to make a good first impression. So just keep that in mind. And then when you reach the end of your introductory paragraph, it's usually a good idea to end it with a sentence where you outline the main points that are going to show up in your essay. And sometimes it's easier to write the essay and then go back and take a look at your topic sentences that you've come up with, and then apply those to that last sentence in your introductory paragraph. just so that you don't feel bound and constricted when you're writing that first draft. You want to be open to change as you're going through your revisions. That's super important. Clear topic sentences. We briefly went over this before, but it's super important. Make sure that your readers are able to follow you. Make sure that don't try anything that's like weird or experimental. Make sure that you're clear and concise in your writing, because at the end of the day, good or quirky writing isn't super helpful if your readers can't actually read what it is that you have written or understand what you've written. So just keep that in mind. And guiding the reader with transitions. Usually these come at the end of each paragraph and the beginning of the following paragraph. It can be easy for paragraphs that come one after the other and to have those feel like they were just copied and pasted with no real link, connecting tissue between them. So that's why it's really important to think about your transitions. And a few ways that you can do this: you can remind the reader about what your next point is. Before you go into your next paragraph, you can describe how the points connect and interrelate. And then you can also think about how you can move your readers smoothly through the essay, but with the language that you're using. One technique that I've seen some people use is that they will end their paragraph with a sentence, and then in the sentence starting the next paragraph, they refer back to something that was said within that last sentence of that previous paragraph. And that can be a good way to make that connection happen. Another great technique is if you're not sure how well your essay is in terms of flow, in terms of readability, you can read it out loud to yourself. And often when you hear it, it sounds very different from what it sounds like in your head, just going through it silently. You can also hand your essay off to somebody else and have them read it. And sometimes you'll be surprised by how they interpret the way that this essay sounds versus the way that you heard it in your head. And that can help you catch some grammatical errors or some awkwardly constructed sentences. And that can help in terms of when you're working on editing and revisions. So speaking of revisions, organization is a big one. Using things like Google Slides or sticky notes to help you organize your initial outline. That's something that you can go back to when you are revising for organization. You can manipulate those different elements, rearrange them visually, and that can be a great way to think of different possible orders, different possible combinations of information, figuring out what goes best where. You can also, after you've written that first draft, you can read through your essay and then try summarizing each paragraph in a handful of words, and then think about how these summaries look like when stacked up in the order that you currently have, and think about how you might rearrange that order to help convey your message more clearly. And maybe there's an idea that shows up in paragraph 4 that would actually go better in paragraph 5. Thinking about what your topic sentences are, thinking about how this information interrelates with one another, and how you're constructing this message that you're trying to get across. And then lastly, the conclusion. This is where you bring your entire essay all together, and you're thinking back to those main points that you started out with in your introduction, and often you'll want to have some kind of callback to those main points in your conclusion. You also want to reflect on what you've already said over the course of your essay. Think about the why again. Bring that back in the conclusion. Remind the readers why this is important, why you're interested in applying for this program. And then spend some time looking towards the future, emphasize what you have already said in the essay. Just be careful that you don't, that what you're writing isn't repetitive, but you're restating what you've said before, but make sure that you do so in a different way. Maybe you include some additional insights, a few additional details, while still having that callback to what you've written before. And then just make sure that you address how studying abroad, how you see that affecting you in the future. And if you think about it, that lends your essay sort of this natural progression. You start out with background contextual information, here's my background, here's why I got interested in this program in the first place, and then you progress all the way down to the future, looking towards the future, how you see this benefiting you in the long term. Okay, before I move on, any questions about how to write a personal essay?
Is it okay to use me and I pronouns?
Yes. It's a personal essay, right? So that personal element, it's pretty much essential to use the first person I pronouns. Yeah. Yeah. You still want to make sure that you have a semi-formal tone to your writing, but you can still do that with the I pronouns. Yep.
So I have a question. How many drafts or revisions do you think most people go through before it's ready for an essay like this?
That's a good question, and it kind of depends on the writer. Some writers might only need 2 drafts before they feel pretty confident in it. Other writers might need more like 4 or 5, and it really depends on the writer's skill level and what they feel comfortable with. Also, the whole revising process, that tends to vary from writer to writer. So some writers, there's like one author who spent an entire novel writing, and they would keep reworking the same 1 page over and over again until they got it absolutely perfect before they moved on to writing the second page. Whereas other writers will, write a complete draft, then go back and revise it. Usually you want to do your revisions in stages. I like to think of a distinction between revision and editing. Revision, you're focused more on like the large scale things that you want to change, things like organization, things like what kind of ideas you're talking about. And then after that is when you focus on the editing, the smaller errors like grammar and punctuation, spelling. And the reason that we tend to do this is because there's little points in changing the spelling, fixing the spelling of a specific word when you're going to end up chucking the entire paragraph because it's not working with the rest of your essay. That's why we want to do the larger macro scale revisions first before the smaller scale editing errors. Any other questions?
I have another question.
Yeah.
So, when the essay is feeling good, how many people should review it as another set of eyes? In addition, would you recommend that they read out loud their essay?
Definitely try reading your essay aloud at least once, and I think you'll definitely notice the difference between what you're seeing on the screen or seeing on the page versus what it sonically sounds like. And in terms of how many people should take a look at it, probably at least 2 people. Get 2 different sets of eyes on it to at least start out with. If there's some disagreement between those 2 people, then you might want to bring in a third as a tiebreaker if there's some major revision that you're not sure on whether or not you want to make. Usually that's not going to happen, but that's an option. The more eyes you get on it, the better. But realistically, you gotta stop somewhere. You don't want to revise your papers to death. Any other questions? All right, how are you guys feeling about writing the personal essay now? You feeling good? Better than when you started out, hopefully? Cool. All right, so here's my shameless plug for the University Writing Commons. This can apply for when you're writing your personal essays or any other general writing that you need help with. You can make an appointment to the UWC, and we can help you whenever you're doing things like if you're stuck on writer's block. Yeah.
What is the UWC's hours and location?
So the location and the hours vary. We have several locations throughout the university. We got places in Klein. I think we have places in like the HLC building. A few of the housing apartments here also have a few UWC hours, and the hours of each place kind of vary. But I can show you guys where you can find more information about that. But in general, it's really useful in terms of brainstorming, beginning the drafting, outlining process, getting feedback on existing drafts that you guys already have. If you need help with design, paper design, or presentation, you can get some help there. If you need help with like polishing, in general, just all steps of the writing process that UWC can help you guys out with. So whatever stage you're at, material in, you can do a drop-in session, and then you can get some personal one-on-one help. And for the most part, people seem to like it. And here's the contact information. So there are 3 ways that you can make an appointment with the UWC. We got a website right there. You can also call this number, or we have an email. And it's super flexible that way. And I believe the website actually breaks down the schedule of what hours are available and where. So it has like a super useful table with different boxes that you can check depending on what time and what place you want to go in for drop-in hours. And it's pretty simple, pretty intuitive. That's a good way to use it. But if that doesn't work for you, we have those other 2 options right there. And yeah, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Jordan. University Writing Commons.